Okay, hello. Good morning, everyone. Happy Sunday. Um, so here we are. It's Sunday, June 28th. So almost the end of the financial year. If you're a business owner like me, you're probably looking at all those last minute business expenses and figuring out what you can fit in before the June 30 cutoff for deductibles. So probably busy time for all of us at the moment. So here we are. It's episode 12. So we're going to talk about blue water marketing opportunities beyond Google and Meta. So what does that mean? Well, I'll talk a little about what that whole blue water analogy is about. But if you're a healthcare professional, if you own a healthcare practice, whether that's an ophthalmology practice, audiology practice, optometry practice, you probably realize that organic marketing, and when I say organic, you can interpret that as free. So like SEO, for example, organic posting on your Facebook account, Instagram account, even YouTube. So all of those things are great. But sometimes there are limits to how far that'll get you. And sometimes if you really want to improve your online visibility, it's necessary to spend a few dollars on some paid marketing. Now, that's true, but the costs of doing that with especially Google and Meta, Facebook and Instagram, the costs of doing that have been going up and up every year. So sometimes when I talk to clients about doing some kind of a paid marketing campaign, and I said, well, you might have to put aside a few $1,000s to do this, you can sort of see the sticker shock in their eyes. I think that running ad campaigns for especially Google ad campaigns, if you're an ophthalmologist or an audiologist, it should still be kind of a no-brainer in my opinion, because if you just get one additional sale, one additional patient in either of those industries, then you've pretty much paid for most of your ad spend for that month. I mean, one laser vision correction booking is worth thousands of dollars. If you're an audiologist, to sell like a premium hearing device, markup for that's a few $1,000s. So that's fine. I think with optometrists, I have talked before about knowing your long-term or lifetime customer value, and when you look at it in those terms, the numbers stack up a lot better. But still, for those initial consultations, if you're spending a lot of money to acquire a new patient through Google or Meta, then it can cause people to think about the economics and the ROI, the return on investment, a lot more carefully. So what I'm saying is maybe there are some alternatives besides Google and Meta that a lot of healthcare practices should be looking at, because there are opportunities there that are not being fully exploited by your competitors, and so this is potentially a blue water opportunity for you. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So before we do, I'm going to start with my usual assumptions, which are that you're here because you are an optometry practice or an audiology practice or an ophthalmology practice owner or manager, or you plan to become one, and you're actually interested in growing your practice. And just to give a heads up, if anything that I talk about today resonates with you, then you can please reach out to me either directly through LinkedIn, or you can send an email or visit my agency's website. There'll be some details about that at the end. Also, if I mention anything or talk about anything in this presentation that you're curious about, by all means, leave a comment in the chat box. If you're on LinkedIn or YouTube right now, So write a comment. It'll appear in the feed, and I can respond to you during the course of this presentation. All right. So what are we going to learn today? Well, we're going to talk about why focusing exclusively on Google and Meta might mean you're missing out on some great ROI alternatives, return on investment alternatives. I'm going to present you with what I think are five underutilized marketing channels that you can take advantage of as an independent healthcare practice. And I'll give you some advice about how you can start leveraging these opportunities right away today. So first of all, who am I? If you're not familiar with this weekly live stream, so my name's Paul Salloway. I've been doing digital marketing and web consulting since 2008. December 2022, I started Optics Digital Marketing, which is a digital marketing agency that was originally launched to assist optometrists in Australia and New Zealand. Since that time, we've grown to also include ophthalmologists and audiologists. We have growth plans, digital marketing growth plans for practices at every stage of their business, whether you're just starting, whether you've been going for a couple of years and are now ready to grow faster, or whether you're an established business and you just want to improve the conversion rate and optimize the campaigns that you're already running. So let's talk about this idea of blue water versus red water. So this comes from a business book that I believe was published in 2005 by I'll probably get these pronunciations wrong, Kim and Morboyne. Anyway, it's a rather famous publication and the concept, which says that red oceans are crowded markets where there are lots of businesses aggressively competing for the same customers, driving up costs and reducing your margins. That's like the red ocean of like a shark feeding frenzy. The alternative to that is the blue ocean, where the markets are less crowded, there's less competition, and you can reach your customers, your patients, much more efficiently. There's not as much pressure on margins, not as much price competition there. So the idea here is, instead of asking how can I beat my competitors on Google or Facebook or Instagram, perhaps you should be asking, where are my competitors not looking? And that's what we're going to talk about today. I'm going to give you five alternatives to those two well-known platforms. So the first one is a favorite of mine, and that's Spotify. Okay, so it might come as a surprise to some of you. So I've got a monthly Spotify subscription. I can't even remember how much it is. I think it's like less than $10 a month, and to me that's money well spent. I love my Spotify subscription. I've got my playlists and so on. I've got my music and my podcasts I listen to. But a lot of people have the free Spotify app. They don't pay a subscription, and that's still great. But if you have the free app, it means that every few minutes in your listening experience, you get an audio ad, which is typically 30 seconds, and on your screen, you'll get like some sort of a thumbnail, and there'll be a logo for the advertiser and a call to action, a button that you can click here to learn more. So, and I think this is a really great opportunity. And we have done this at my agency. We've done this with a few clients now, optometry clients, and it's working really well. So you can target by postcode and by demographics, by age, by interests. We did look originally at just targeting podcast listeners, but at least at the moment, Spotify doesn't give the postcode targeting option for just podcasts. So we have to target like all Spotify content in general. There's probably like, more market reach doing it that way. Anyway. So you can be specific about who you would like to hear the ads that you run. And you don't need to record anything yourself. So the way Spotify ads work is you will write out a script, which is fairly brief. It's like, because it's only 30 seconds of ad time, the script is I don't know, like 40 to 40 words maybe. And then you submit that, and then they get a voice actor to read that and record it, and you get a chance to review it. You can make some edits. And then when it's approved, then they push it out into the Spotify stream for anyone who's using the free app. So what we found is that the cost per impressions is very competitive with Facebook. And it's a great way of getting your brand name recognized and building brand awareness. So if you think about it, so Spotify ads are a bit like old school TV ads and radio ads in the sense that you can't avoid them, right? So if you're on your Facebook feed, you see an ad, you just scroll past it, you flick past, right? Instagram, same thing. But people who are using Spotify, they're typically doing something else at the same time. They're maybe exercising, or they're commuting, or they could be driving, they could be doing chores. So they typically aren't going to interrupt what they're doing when an ad comes along. So you've got that old school captive audience that radio and TV has. Looking at the analytics, it's like almost, well, I'm going to say like 95% of the ad impressions people listen to all the way through. So that's a really good result. Now, as I said, that when these ads come up on somebody's phone or their device, so there is an option where they can click on the button to learn more. And whilst that is great, I think, well, one thing, if somebody interrupts what they're doing to take the time to pull up the phone and click on that button, that to me says that they are a very motivated individual. So they're very motivated about whatever it is that you're offering. They have a lot of what we call buyer intent. So we're seeing through the ads and campaigns that we run that we're getting like a cost per click of about $8, $7 or $8. And I think that if somebody is motivated enough to click on an ad, it's definitely worth paying $8 for that click. But as I said, it's really just the clicks are really just a bonus. I think Spotify ads are great for building brand name awareness. So I've even had clients say to me that something along the lines of, "Oh, my son was with his mates, and they came around to our house on the weekend, and a couple of his mates said that they've heard ads for my practice on their Spotify." So it's great when you get that kind of feedback. And another thing too is, you might think that it's only like the teenagers or the Gen Zs. That's actually not what we're seeing through the analytics. It seems like a large percentage of the people being exposed to these ads are actually sort of middle-aged, which is not what I would have expected, but that's what we're seeing. And so when I mentioned this to one client, he said, "Yeah, that's because so old blokes like you and I, we're a bit stingy about paying for subscriptions." And he might have a point, but nevertheless, so there are good analytics that come through with Spotify ads, and you can see like the kind of like the gender split and the age group, the generational split of who's actually being exposed to your ads. So Spotify, big fan of it. Spotify ads, very reasonably priced advertising option. So another one is Pinterest. So you may have heard of Pinterest, you may not. So so Pinterest likes to promote itself as a visual search engine. So the way it works is if you have a Pinterest account, you get boards. They call them boards, where people kind of like arrange and they pin content that they like. It's kind of like liking on Facebook, I suppose. There's a saying that pinners are planners. So people often go to Pinterest when they're looking for inspiration. Like home renovators, great market if you're in that kind of business. So the market audience tends to skew towards women for whatever reason. So it's about 7. So according to the published statistics from Pinterest themselves, about 70% of their user base is women, and on average, the average income of their user base is also a bit higher than average. So this means that Pinterest is a great target market for fashion items because it is a very visual medium. Okay, so people are posting nice photos, images. So if you're selling like fashion sunglasses or fashion spectacles, then Pinterest is a really great opportunity for you. And the other thing that makes Pinterest attractive from a marketing perspective is it's also, I think, a good channel for young family health services. So like if you're offering some sort of pediatric optometry, for example, or if you're offering like children's hearing exams, that sort of thing, Pinterest could be a great opportunity for you. Like I said, so it's Pinterest is for, well, they say pinners are planners. Okay, so people who maybe they've got young families and they're thinking about the kind of health or clinical services for their kids. It's a very visual medium, and they do have there are organic opportunities there. Anyone can create a Pinterest account and start organizing their content and posting stuff and seeing what other people are posting. They also have a paid ad marketing platform, and it's really nice to use. Actually, it's very simple. I mean, compared to if you've ever used like Google Ads or Meta Ads, it's much simpler than that, much easier to use. So that's nice. So TikTok. Now, I know probably some of you are shaking your heads already, but TikTok, I think, is worth considering because a lot of you are probably making short form video content already, or at least making some kind of video content. And if you're making videos, then you should look into ways of repurposing that into like 60 to 90-second clips and putting those on YouTube. If you're doing that already, and for Meta Reels as well, by the way, so Facebook and Instagram Reels. But if you're doing that already, then why not also publish it to TikTok? So TikTok is, you probably realize already, very popular, particularly with the younger generations. But I also think that it's worth doing because the TikTok algorithm works a little differently from YouTube's algorithm and Meta's algorithm, for that matter. So I hear stories about like people who post a short form video on YouTube and it gets like a couple of hundred views. Same video on TikTok gets 10,000 views, okay? And vice versa, in reverse. So each platform has their own algorithm. And so I think it's worth diversifying the content that you're already producing. So why not just publish it in another platform? And there are some tools available that will allow you to do all of this efficiently. So you can add your Meta account, you can add your YouTube account, you can add your TikTok account. We have a tool that we use for this purpose. So you publish it, you schedule it in advance, and then that's it. You don't have to worry about it from that point. It just goes out. So yeah, so I think TikTok is a really great option. I think TikTok, according to some people, has more of a local bias than YouTube Shorts, and that's really what you want after all. So you want people in your city or even your local suburbs getting exposed to the videos that you're producing. So if we're talking Gen Zs and millennials, younger generations, then Snapchat is something also that you should not be sleeping on. So Snapchat has got an extremely high usage rate with 18 to 35s, particularly in Australia. So I think Australia has one of like the highest per capita like usage profiles of any country for Snapchat for whatever reason. So Snapchat is like it was Snapchat, of course, that pioneered the whole the story, the story format, the posting stuff that's only there for 24 hours and then it goes. So Facebook and Instagram, they kind of like copied that whole model, but it was Snapchat that did it first. And so you can also post ads through Snapchat. So you can post images. So if you're taking like every couple of days, maybe get someone in your practice to take a photo of some fashion frames that you've got. If you're an optometry practice, somebody wearing the glasses, take a selfie, because photos of people always do better. Or short form video, and when I say short form, I mean really short, like micro short, like 10 seconds, up to 10 seconds long. That seems to work really well as well. So yeah, so again, like selfie videos could be you in the practice, could be you with your team, but video, like in all formats, tends to work better than static images. Now another thing about Snapchat, I think, and this is really interesting, is that they have an offer where they will match, in fact, do more than match your ad spend. So you can try their ad platform, and for every $350 you spend, they will match it with $375. Okay. So, those are free ads. So I think it's worth experimenting. It's worth giving it a try if they're gonna match your dollars that you're putting in. And so the last one is not a platform in a sense. It's not like a social media platform. But here I'm going to give you a fifth option, which is MMS marketing. So MMS stands for multimedia messaging service. Okay, so you're probably very familiar with SMS, so standard messaging service, but MMS allows you to include rich media, like include images, photos, and much longer text. So MMS has a much higher engagement rate than traditional email marketing. So I'm a huge fan of email marketing. I think every business should be doing email marketing. But MMS marketing has an even higher engagement rate. So to give you some numbers, I think with email marketing, if you're getting a click-through rate, meaning if somebody clicks on the link or the learn more button in your email, if you're getting a click on that, if you're getting a click-through rate of more than 5%, you're doing really well. That's just the nature of email. But with MMS marketing, typically click-through rate is somewhere, anywhere from 30 to 40%, much higher. So you're getting much more reliable engagement from your MMS messaging. So there are lots of different platforms and options that you can use for sending out MMS broadcasts. The one I like is ClickSend, and yes, there is a cost for every message that you send out. It's typically between like 20 to 40 cents per message in Australia. So so if you're sending out 100 MMS, you might have to spend like $40. So I think it's still really reasonable. The thing I'd say with this is get opt-in permissions first, and this ties back to something that I've talked about in prior videos, is that when patients come into your practice, you should be trying to get their opt-in for an email newsletter, and at the same time, why not get their explicit opt-in for SMS and MMS messaging? Now, that could mean like just having a checkbox on some sort of like a patient survey. Like I always encourage practices to have some sort of a patient feedback form that patients can fill in at the end of their consultation. Keep it really simple. Don't ask for a lot of information. Have it on an iPad maybe where they can just put in a few details. If it's somebody who's an older patient, maybe you might have to help them with that, but keep it simple. But it's really beneficial to get those opt-ins, to get that opt-in for your email marketing and for MMS, so that it covers your obligations under the Spam Act and so on in Australia, and ARPA as well. So I've given you 5 options, 5 alternatives to Google and Meta, and what I'd like to encourage you to do today is to create a free account with one of those 5 options, and just check it out. Try it for a week, see if you like it, learn about the ease of use of the platform. So in the end, the marketing tools that you're going to use are going to be the more effective ones. So if you create an account with Facebook, like Facebook Ad Manager, for example, and you get lost and frustrated, then you're probably not going to use that. But like I said, so Pinterest, Snapchat, so they've got really simple to use ad platforms, and I would encourage you to just create, don't even run ad campaigns necessarily in the beginning. Just create an account. If you've never used Pinterest before, if you've never used Snapchat before, just learn about what those platforms are, the type of content that people are posting, and think about if they would be a good fit for your business. Think about ways that you could leverage these to promote the things that you're providing to your patients, whether that be laser vision correction, or whether that be premium hearing devices, whether that be pediatric optometry or whatever. And if you think there is an option there, I would say consider investing a small amount, maybe less than $500 over a month, and just see what kind of insights you can get from doing that. So I think all marketing comes back to testing the water, figuring out what works, iterating and refining. So I think it's well worth spending a few $100s for a month just to see what kind of results you get from that. And I'll leave you with one final thought, which is that while your competitors are fighting over Google clicks and Facebook impressions, you might find your next patient somewhere that they're not even looking. Okay, so think about these blue water opportunities, one where there's far less competition. So if you want to reach out to me, you can do that through LinkedIn. You can go to my agency's website, which is opticsdigital.net, or you can email me directly, paul@opticsdigital.net. All right, so I hope today's presentation was helpful, and so we'll wrap up there, and see you again next time. Bye for now.